Good morning. So you've just finished global marketing. We've looked at ethnocentric, geocentric, polycentric. We've introduced the interesting term of glocalization, the global brands that tend to localize menus. We see this a lot in foods because you have different variations of food preference. And also we've linked this to mass versus niche markets. So if it's a mass market product, we've got Taco Bell on the screen here, we know that we need to appeal to the masses. So if it's more niche and we're talking about luxury clothing, for example, or cars, then maybe that ethnocentric brand identity helps it stand out in the marketplace. If it's differentiated, we can link that into PED and lots of other theories that we've practiced in class. What you need to understand is you need to identify straight away the national identity of the brand itself in this type of question. We're then talking about the national identity of where the brand is trying to expand, and we're looking for differences. So we're looking for differences that might get in the way of the hook in the question, the aim of the company. Okay, again, it's important to plan very quickly to make sure that you're addressing the hook, but also those other factors linked to this type of question. Now, this year's research theme is fast fashion or fashion, and it won't surprise me if we get a very similar question to the one that we're about to go through to help us consolidate the unit that we finished off last week. So Taco Bell, now this is an American company and they have Tex-Mex. So it's that Texas Mexican style of food. It's not Brazilian. And Brazilian with Portuguese heritage may have different preferences for different spices and things like that. So in some ways, Taco Bell might want to appeal to the masses in Brazil with their Portuguese heritage and therefore adapt their menu. But then again, Taco Bell are meant to be this Tex-Mex restaurant, and if they adapt too much, maybe they lose some of their identity. Okay, it's quite important. So this is a 2021 past paper question, and we can see we've got 2018 here. Well, hopefully in the paper there would be other bits of information that we could bring in. If this was a paper 3 question, this was a paper 1 question actually, but if it was a paper 3 question, you would have done the research theme on this. So it's really important that you remember some key facts, and remember we give you the power of fortune telling and seeing into the future because your exam paper was written at least a year ago. So if you're keeping up to date with current affairs, and we will help you with your research theme, of course, and your research will help with that as well, you can bring that in, especially for your mocks. However, in 2024 we can see, and then you're bringing a little bit more of an opportunity in to analyse, okay, in context, of course. So let's go through this question. Taco Bell entered the Brazilian market in 2018 with limited success. We're now in 2021, remember. To increase sales, Taco Bell could either adopt a polycentric, so we're going to put a 1 next to that to help us plan, or an ethnocentric. Now we've got our 2 options. Okay? Evaluate these 2 options and recommend which one, not both, is most suitable. Now that doesn't mean that we're not going to do the other one at all. Okay, it's just this is the most suitable one, but I don't want you to sit on the fence with this sort of thing. You've got to say in the first line of your conclusion, overall this is the most suitable because it's more suitable than the other one, and here's the reason why. Because if we did the other one, this is what we might miss out on. Okay, that opportunity cost style of justification. Now, we're looking for the hook. So the golden rules of hooks are the examiners in 20 markers will repeat them. Yep, so you will see them twice. So up here we've got to increase sales. Down here we have to increase sales. Okay, so it's to increase sales in Brazil. Okay, so this isn't in Texas. This is to increase sales in Brazil. We've got our hook. We understand that they've got limited success up here. We're going to be looking for this evidence of limited success. We're going to be looking for reasons why the case study insinuates that they've had limited success, and hopefully we can come up with reasons for this, and then we can come up with ethnocentric and polycentric reasons why not. Now, lots of people who answered this question back in 2021 just regurgitated their knowledge for this very well practiced unit. This is a common unit that students will enjoy studying, and then they started going on about geocentric. If you're going to talk about geocentric, that's absolutely fine, but don't get sidetracked. Make sure you're talking about the pros and cons of polycentric, P in favour, P against, pros and cons of ethnocentric, P in favour, P against. Overall, answer my question, justify comparing and contrasting. Yeah, so overall this is the best one because the other one's not quite as good because, and then we can talk about our MOPs, okay? Now, because we've got 2018, they entered 3 years ago. Wow, I've just done some high-level maths there. Good application, do a bit of calculations. I'm sure there's other data in here to do more calculations with. And so they've been there for 3 years, limited growth. You then need to think for your MOPs, we're going beyond 2021. And it could be that maybe you say go down the more polycentric approach by making sure that some menu items are tailored to the Brazilian marketplace, okay, to build rapport with the customers. However, in the future, our MOPs, if the Brazilian market become more accustomed to the Tex-Mex brand, then maybe in the future they can bring more traditional Taco Bell menu items. It's quite easy to change a menu, isn't it? So you have to think about the future and then talk about the reason why we might move towards a more ethnocentric approach. And the Taco Bell ethnocentric, remember, is that Tex-Mex. Yeah, they're American Mexican style of food. Okay, that you've got to be talking about this in your essays. Now, as we say, do the questions in order. And I think this paper is a really good example of why you should do that. So for question A, this is the second part of the paper, we had McDonald's restaurants opening between these two dates and you had to do a percentage growth. Now, if McDonald's are showing rapid growth up to 2018, I know that Taco Bell opened in 2018 and we're talking about limited growth between 18 and 21. But you could say a comparison about the growth of McDonald's, who are a competitor to Taco Bell in Brazil. You're not going to talk about it too much, but you've already done the maths. Nice high-level application. So remember, one of the reasons why Taco Bell might not be growing might be because of competitive rivalry. Yeah, said our friend Michael Porter. So you've got a comparative analysis there of growth of a competitor up until the point that Taco Bell opened. We've already got some ANSOF. So you've answered a question on ANSOF about Taco Bell entering the Brazilian market. Well, we're going to be talking about new products, new market. It's not going to be, it's not going to be it's still not opening a clothes shop. It might be a slightly different menu, so it's not a totally new product. But it's definitely a new market with maybe they're adapting their product. So I think it's probably the same product on that spectrum towards new, and it's definitely a new market. And remember, Brazil has a Portuguese heritage, not a Spanish heritage. So in some ways, that Tex-Mex might not be what all the locals are used to eating. You never know, okay? You've already talked about ANSOF and the risk of entering a new market. Even though they've been there for 3 years, they're still relatively new. They're probably in the big cities where there's lots of people. When they grow, then hopefully there'll be more brand awareness and people would have tried it. Yeah, they're going to be in the food courts and stuff like that. You need to think about these things. More importantly, you've just done a 4-marker on ANSOF, so why would you not use ANSOF in your essay? If there's any more that we could use. Then we're looking at using extract F. We're talking about exchange rates between the USA and Brazil. Well, we can see that this is not a Taco Bell, but Tropicana is a drink that Taco Bell might sell. So this instantly makes me think, well, maybe the Tropicana is being made in Brazil. That means that actually they could use this in their restaurants. They're not paying import tariffs. However, for other drinks that Taco Bell might use in their restaurants that might not be made in Brazil, they might be importing them from the USA. You've already done the exchange rate movements here. Yeah, so again, you can use that argument of spiced. It's not quite spiced, but we won't change it for different currencies. But you need to think you've already done this work. You've talked about imports and exports, and you've looked at those fluctuations. You could use that information to talk about how, if they had a more polycentric menu, for example, it might be that Tropicana is very popular in Brazil, they could actually save on the imports from the United States and protect themselves against those exchange rate fluctuations. We've then done a 12-marker. So assess the legal controls of multinationals in the country. Well, you'd have explored that. If there's anything in there that might help you to do with, obviously, what they're trying to achieve in the hook, then maybe you could use that as well. Okay, I'm more excited about A, B, and C here. Now, if you've gone straight to the 20-marker, which we would advise you not to, you've missed out on the opportunity of using all this wonderful context and argument that you've already had. Now, you can't repeat what you've written, but you can use it. There's nothing wrong with using that data. And here's the question. And again, remember, the hooks are repeated twice to increase sales in Brazil. Okay, very, very important that we address the question and we don't have those lazy TikTok style essays of always ending in sales or profits and it being totally abstract. So I'm thinking of increasing sales of Tex-Mex food in their restaurants. Yeah, I'm not just talking about sales. Yeah, increasing sales of Tex-Mex food, increasing sales of localized menu items tailored to the Brazilian market. I want to be able to visualize the type of food that you are describing. Increasing attendance at restaurants, maximum capacity utilization. There's so much you could do with this. Okay, you've only got 24 minutes to write it, but don't forget the stuff you've already written. So we're moving on to the case studies that we've been through, and I've not put all the case studies in here. I've left the McDonald's one out, but you can go and look at the paper if you want to. So they open up their first restaurant in Rio de Janeiro. So it's the capital city. It's an already crowded market. Remember, we're probably going to use this for our ANSOF question, for example. It's a crowded market. So how are they going to differentiate? They're a mass market product, and back onto our 20 marker. It's a mass market product. If they tailor it all to the Brazilian market, well, how are they going to stand out? What does Taco Bell actually stand for if there's no Tex-Mex food? Maybe they need that national identity of Tex-Mex, not that that's a nation, to actually stand out in a crowded market. Who are they in a crowded market with? Well, if we would have only just done a question on McDonald's, maybe we could talk about it. Okay, we've got names of dishes, which is fantastic. The grilled stuffed burrito, so those sorts of things are fantastic. The local drink mate. So we can talk about this in our 20 marker, and this is the second case study in the second half of the paper. Remember, if you were one of those silly students that went straight to the 20 marker, those type of students tend to look at 20 marker, last data extract, probably wouldn't have even read this, to be honest with you. Do your questions in the order of the paper. Okay, so currently all branches in Brazil will be company owned. Okay, but Taco Bell is considering franchising in the future. Lovely MOPS coming up, he thinks. What a lovely sentence for a MOPS. This could help them with their growth in sales. Okay, so other people's money, we understand franchising. Someone pays them a license to open up, and then suddenly they may not just be in the big cities, because there might be franchisees that are willing to take risks in smaller towns and cities. What a wonderful opportunity that we could bring this in. This minimises some of that risk, according to Ansoff as well, because they're not risking their own capital as much as if they were doing a rapid expansion plan with their own money. Okay. Also, franchisees may have that local expertise, for example, so they might be able to recommend adapting certain menu items to the locality of where their restaurants are. If Taco Bell listen, then they'll give them permission to change the menus. Okay, pretty easy. Here's our data extract, and without going through obviously the exchange rate, there's different ways we could use this information. Remember, we've got 2018 to 2019 here. It's just over a year's worth of exchange rates, and they're fluctuating a lot. We could use 0.1 and compare to 0.2. We could just smooth it out and come out with the averages. We could look at the peaks and the troughs and do a difference. There's lots of things that we could do with this information. Okay, we could pick from here to here and say, actually, over this time frame, we've seen limited changes. If this continues into the future, then maybe. Yeah, so there's different ways we can look at this, but this is a limited time scale of exchange rates. So, you know, maybe we would just ride the wave of these fluctuating exchange rates whilst we're importing or exporting stuff. You need to also think about Taco Bell as an American company, and profitability or profits made in Brazil will hopefully go back home for their shareholders. Well, the time with the exchange rate, the money going out of Brazil back to the US, maybe there's a bit of an impact there as well. Okay, not sure how much you need to talk about that in these questions, but it's something to consider. Whenever you're thinking about the company, think about the form of business. Now, the hook in that question is sales, so it's not about profitability. So if you accidentally start going off on a profit rant, you're not going to answer the question. So we're then on to multinationals, and we've got loads of information here to consider, and you know, you can have a look through this. I'm not going to read this out. You can read it the same as I can. Supply chains are mentioned, you know, working conditions. There's a lot that we can talk about here. So just think about that. We've got Pepsi, we've got KFC, you know, health problems caused by multinational food businesses. This is clearly a fast food business. And remember, there's a legislation question that you would have already answered as well, which clearly, you know, if multinationals bring in more obesity into Brazil, maybe they're going to restrict like sugary drinks, like it says here, like they have in the UK by putting sugar tax on things. Okay, so we've got that there as well. So, excuse the graphic, my AI decided not to spell Primark properly. So, when I was looking at this question, I thought about the research theme, and so I quickly wrote this question and thought, you know, how could I illustrate to you that maybe a British brand, which will class Primark as a British brand, going into a market. Well, if you look at the countries that Primark is in, they're in Romania, Germany, Hungary, Czech Republic, those sorts of countries. And there are differences between the UK and those countries. However, maybe a lot of the stuff that Primark make can actually be used in those stores, and vice versa. The stuff that would be maybe a t-shirt that might be worn by someone from Poland might be the same as we would wear in the UK. And then I thought, well, if Primark were going to expand into a totally different market, well, significantly different markets, then I'm picking on Japan again, like we did when we were talking about McDonald's menus in class. So this is what you have here. It's exactly the same question, but from a clothing perspective, and I've chosen a country where there are significant cultural differences, and it gives us something more to talk about. It's the same as the Tex-Mex brand going into Brazil that is a Portuguese culture. Okay? You've got proximity that's a bit different than Portugal. Obviously, Brazil is closer to the United States and Mexico than Portugal is, but you've still got that proud Portuguese heritage. Okay? They speak the language, they've got the culture, and last time I met with someone from Brazil, they had a Portuguese passport. Okay? So, not all of them, obviously, just some. So, again, we are looking at the hook in this question. I'll pause, find the hook. I'm hoping you've seen that market share growth and increase its market share is mentioned twice. Now, what we have to look out for is variations in the same theme, because I purposely put the word rapid in there. I'm thinking of product life cycle. I'm thinking of that product life cycle in a new market. Ansoff comes into it. Porter's Five Forces, my supply chains, my advertising, and this is not a profitability. I would instantly be thinking, what is the formula for market share? Okay, so that gives me the structure of quite a lot of my arguments. The rapid, I'd be looking in the case study for the aims and objectives to try and quantify what rapid is. Is rapid 3 years? Is rapid 5, 10 years? I don't think 10 years is a rapid growth strategy, but we need to contextualize what rapid is. This could be that Primark are planning not to make any profits, maybe even lose money in the first 5 years of being in Japan. This is exactly what the likes of Amazon did when they first went into India. Remember, I think we've done this in class, Amazon's targets going into India were nothing to do with profitability in the short term. It was acquisition of new customers, retention of those customers, and speed and quality of delivery. That was pretty much their 3 core targets going into big cities like Delhi. Okay, so you have to think about it in context, and if you see a word like rapid, you should be thinking about it. Because rapid means when it's not as rapid growth in the future, they might actually change their marketing strategies. It gives you an opportunity to have that short versus long-term discussion in your essay. And that's what the examiners like. So, back to our question. I'm not going to answer the question. I'm not going to give you all the case study evidence. The point of this video was to talk about how to plan it, how to think about the theories. Your prep this week is to answer this 20 marker. I want to see 4P paragraphs. I want to see good use of contextual information. It would be great if you use multiple case study sources here, like I've described at the beginning of this. And if you want to do those other questions, or at least plan those other questions before you do this question, then that will help you with this 20 marker. Okay? Your conclusion will directly answer the question by choosing one of the options. You will link to the hook throughout. Your answer definitely in your conclusion, and your justification will compare and contrast. You will say, overall, the most suitable one for Taco Bell to increase its sales in Brazil is this. This is because if I would have chosen the other one, maybe I wouldn't have achieved da 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 da. Therefore, this one has a higher likelihood of achieving this because, and you're going to because in context. Okay? Then your MOPS will choose one of those MOPS factors. So M, markets, O, objectives, yeah, and possibly ownership as well with this one. Remember, we've got that link into franchises. Okay? It could be that that is a wonderful MOPS because you just leap on, or the ownership of the expansion is then changing slightly, even though Taco Bell are clearly still going to own the company. We've then got the product or service. Well, in this case, it could be the menu items change over time because they get more used to Tex-Mex style food and they add more original menu items from the United States. It could be the situation in the economy. It could be the situation to do with the legislation. There could be a change in the government legislation. You've already written a question on this. That actually forces them to change their menus, and therefore this could negatively or positively support growth in sales. Straight back to the hook, always. Okay? Think about your answers before you write it. You will mark your answers, so I will expect your chains of argument to be underlined, quotation marks around your evidence, and I will expect two contextualized definitions. One at the beginning of option 1, you're going to define polycentric. Polycentric. An example of polycentric for Taco Bell could be, okay? And then for option 2, you will start off with a very similar but linked to ethnocentric. You've got to make sure that you're defining these key terms in context, because if you just start waffling through the answer, you don't demonstrate understanding, we're going to get a repeat of some of the issues we had with that social trends second half of your mock exam paper. Okay, hopefully that's useful before you do your prep. Have fun.